Shwmae pawb, hello everybody, croeso, welcome to my wild Welsh garden. My name's Isabel and this is my garden at the top of the Swansea Valley in South Wales in the UK. Autumn is fading slowly into winter and so many gardens just become barren wastelands for several months. Well, in this video, I'd like to share with you some very simple things that us gardeners can do and not do that will completely transform our gardens into havens for creatures, providing food and water and shelter to our local wildlife when it needs it most. Winter can be a real challenge for wildlife, as if it didn't have enough problems. So wouldn't it be great if there were hundreds and thousands of little wildlife sanctuaries all across our lands, places where wildlife was protected and could spend the winter and be off to a good start next year? And that's what our gardens can be. So join me and I'll just take you around and show you some of the things that I'm doing and not doing in my garden this autumn and winter. Now, you will have heard me say this before, and at the risk of repeating myself, I do think that the easiest and best things that you can do for wildlife over the winter is just to leave your beds, your flower beds and your vegetable beds, just as they are. And just let them die down naturally. And it does mean a change of mindset. It means seeing things not as an untidy mess, but as homes and habitat, food, shelter for wildlife over the winter. But there are situations where you want to cut a plant back, and there's an example of that over here. Yeah, I've planted 3 little mullein plants that I've grown from seed, and the lemon balm was there. I could see it from a kitchen window, and I was just looking out one day and I thought, do you know, the mullein could go there and the lemon balm could go into one of the permaculture beds. And of course now is a really good time to transplant perennial plants if you want to, because there's still some heat in the soil, still some warmth in the soil, so they can grow some roots before winter and get off to a good start next year. So I dug up the lemon balm and I've planted it there on the edge of the veg patch and put some into a pot to give away. But I cut all the stems off and I thought, what a shame, because they were full of seeds and full of spiders. So this is what I've done with it. I tied them all into a bundle and put them into a tree and brought some sneezewort and some wild carrot with it. And so the habitat is still there, the spiders still have their home, and then the birds can come and eat the seeds and eat the spiders. And I just keep doing that all over the garden. There's some in this tree. I think those are from last year actually. And some tied onto the trellis here. And I've just made a sort of garden feature out of them. But if you don't want to hang them up, there's other things that you can do with them. I've got an open compost heap here in the far corner of my garden next to the conventional compost heaps. And that's a fabulous place for all sorts of creatures to spend the winter. Last year I made a bug snug, which is just a wigwam of sticks, and it holds together any dead stems or bits of foliage that might have blown off or you might want to cut back. I haven't made one yet this year, but I'm sure I will as the autumn and winter goes on. And I did something similar here in this bed next to the lawn. I dug up a geranium because I have rather a lot of geraniums in this garden really. And I planted some mullein and I planted some cow parsley. And my little helper came to have a quick snack. And now he's got his adult plumage, he's looking a lot smarter. And the geranium leaves that I removed were pretty wet and soggy, so I just put those on the open compost heap. And another very easy thing that you can do is not tidy up your leaves. I know it's a thing in the States, isn't it? Leave the leaves. Partly because they make a good mulch. The worms will come and take them down into the soil and add nutrients and fertility to the soil in just a natural process. And this is where so many invertebrates will spend the winter, some as adults and some as caterpillars. This is where a lot of our native butterflies and moths will overwinter. And then, of course, the birds will come and sort through it all and find food. And here we can see how the process actually works. Just found this little caterpillar. I think it's a moth caterpillar, don't know which one, on an autumn raspberry leaf. And I think that that little caterpillar is going to drop off onto the ground and hide away in that leaf litter under those weeds and spend the winter. The only place I would say it's not a good idea to leave the leaves, and that's in your pond. So yeah, I do come out here every day or so to fish the leaves out of the pond. And maybe this is a good point just to pause for a minute and ask you if you wouldn't mind, if you're enjoying the video and you like what I'm doing here and you'd like to know more, then please like the video and subscribe to the channel, because it does help the channel to become better known. And that's why I'm doing it, because I really hope that more gardeners will become wild gardeners and create these little sanctuaries for wildlife. And just at the minute, there are lots of little birds flitting around in these beds. They're very difficult to film because they're very quick. I don't know if you can see, there's a little blue tit there, and it's eating the seeds of the wild carrot. And this is a little coal tit that looks like he's munching on a poppy seed head. And I'm helping the little birds by providing them with all this lovely cover to hide in and forage in, and all this food, all the creatures that are living here, and the seed heads, the seeds that I'm just leaving. But I also feed them as well. At the moment I've just hung a couple of feeders on the arch over the main path that goes up the garden. But as we move into winter, I'll put up a feeding station down here, and then I can just sit in my kitchen and watch them in the warm. And then a really important thing to provide over the winter for the wildlife is water. And there's different ways of doing this. I've got my 2 ponds, and I also provide some containers for bathing and drinking. This one's mostly for drinking really, and they need to be cleaned out quite regularly. And this one is for drinking and for bathing. And during the winter, bathing is so important for birds because that's how they keep their feathers in good condition. And they need their feathers in good condition in order to survive the winter. In the olden days, I used to tidy these climbers up. This is a mixture, it's a great jumble of a rose and a honeysuckle. And I used to tidy it up, neaten it up, make it nice. Now I don't bother, I just leave it. And yeah, the sparrows hide in it. As they congregate here in this silver birch tree. And then if something alarms them, they all, as one, scutch into there and just hide away. But of course, because I want to film them doing it, they're not going to. Yeah, sparrows don't perform. And I'm just looking at those clouds down there. I think the storm clouds are gathering. There's another storm on its way for tomorrow. So I'll have to get a move on and get this video finished before the storm arrives. And this is looking at it from the other side, from the secret garden. So yes, unruly, untidy climbers are wonderful cover for little birds in the winter. And winter is the time for sort of cutting down trees and pruning trees and hedges and things like that. And I will be cutting the hedge back this winter. And I've got somebody coming to take a branch off this cherry tree as well. But I'm not going to get rid of the wood. I'm going to create log piles and habitat piles. So yeah, the larger pieces of wood you can make into log piles like this. And these are good shelter and homes for creatures straight away, but then they start to rot. And of course, then they become habitat for a whole new set of creatures. There's another log pile under here growing some lovely fungi. And the smaller sticks, smaller branches you can break up and make into a different sort of habitat pile, more open and catering for different sorts of creatures. I try and keep some of my lawn long as well. I keep calling it a lawn, but it isn't really, it's a meadow. And there's still some flowers here. See, there's some clover there and fox and cubs and even a few daisies over there. And a dandelion. So yeah, still food for pollinators and nice hiding places for things like little frogs. So I've got short grass, which is where the birds like to feed in the winter. And I've got slightly longer grass. I say grass, not a lot of grass there, is there really? Mostly plants now. And I've got even longer grass around the new pond. And down by the side of the polytunnel. And this is where a lot of creatures like to spend the winter. In all that thick grass there, down at the base, where it's nice and cosy and sheltered and safe. This long grass round the pond and the polytunnel has actually never been cut, not really. I sowed it as meadow grass seed 2 years ago, so I think probably in the spring I shall cut it down and let it grow back up again. And a good thing to do in the short grassy areas is to plant spring bulbs, particularly crocuses. Crocuses are just great for the emerging queen bumblebees when they're just coming out of hibernation, because often their energy stores are very, very low. So low that they can't fly. And the thing about crocuses is that the bees can walk to them. So there you have it, just a few very easy things that you can do to create a wildlife sanctuary for these poor creatures that are so embattled to survive the winter. And it really is very, very easy to make a small change. And if everybody made a small change, you know, that would be quite a big change. So thanks for watching. I hope you managed to do some of these things, and I hope you enjoy watching the wildlife that joins you in your garden over the winter. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Hwyl fawr.